When I think about some of my favorite Batman shows, there's usually two that's always at the top of my list: Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond. These shows weren't just cartoons. For me, they redefined superhero TV, setting a standard that still felt decades later. With Bruce Timm's iconic art style and the DCAU's unforgettable storytelling, they became instant fan favorites, not just for me, but for everyone who watched. But in 2004, a very different version of Batman stepped into the spotlight, with a Gotham that was completely different from the one that we knew, and a hero that was still growing into the mantle. This was the Batman, and today I want to explore how its style, characters, and storytelling created a version of Batman that still holds up. So with that being said, let's get into this video. Now, one of the first things that set Batman apart from previous Batman shows was the look. Jeff Matsuda's art style gave the series an entirely new identity, giving us a Gotham that was vibrant and colorful. To me, the vibe from this city felt a lot closer to the Gotham that was in the Joel Schumacher films, as the city itself felt alive, almost like it was its own character, and it matched the vibe of all the characters very well. Batman and Bruce Wayne's design looked really well too, as the character was now younger, making him more faster and more agile. His suit had the classic gray and blue tradition, but the art style made it feel different, and when he had to wear other suits, they looked absolutely amazing. Especially the anti-freeze suit. That's one of my favorite suits. But to bring it back to other designs, one of the most complimentary pieces to this version of Batman was the Batmobile, a futuristic looking car and a jet-like engine that stole almost every scene that it was in. That car was amazing, and even the villains were revamped, but we'll get more into that later. What mattered visually was clear. The Batman was never afraid to look completely different from what came before it.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
But the visuals were only part of what made this series stand out. This version showed us a Bruce Wayne who was still learning how to become Batman. Instead of the calm, seasoned vet that we were used to, this Batman was more reactive, and sometimes even reckless. He wasn't just fighting Gotham's criminals. He was figuring out how to be a better hero, and a big part of that journey was Alfred. In this series, Alfred wasn't just a caretaker. He was Bruce's anchor. Whenever Bruce pushed himself too far, Alfred was the one grounding him. Their dynamic showed that Batman wasn't just by himself.
If only we could build a cleaning robot to assist the Batman's butler.
And while Alfred was a major influence on his journey, there were many characters who played just as much of a role into shaping this Batman, which brings us to the villains. Now, when it comes to the villains of the show, the Rogues Gallery in the Batman was unlike any other. The Joker was still chaotic and completely unpredictable, but in this show he was acrobatic and completely unhinged, which made him even more dangerous than usual. The Penguin wasn't just a crime boss. He had martial arts skills of his own, and two deadly assistants known as the Kabuki twins, who were some of the best fighters in the series. Next we have the Riddler, who to me went through one of the biggest changes, as he was more dark and sinister, that gave off heavy Marilyn Manson vibes. Mr. Freeze, on the other hand, wasn't the tragic villain that we all knew. He was just evil and wanted to dominate Gotham. Next was Bane. Bane was pure brute force, a monster that to me looked similar to Forearms from Ben 10. And then there was Clayface, one of my favorite villains on the show, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And while there are many villains that I'm missing, each villain was given a new spin that made them feel unique, and in doing so, they made Gotham feel even more dangerous. Every encounter wasn't just another fight, but just another step towards helping Bruce become a better Batman. But the show didn't just use villains and Alfred to develop Batman. It did so by expanding his allies in surprising ways. Detective Ellen Yin was one of Bruce's first allies. She started out as an officer who was trying to bring him in, but over time she began to see the good in him, eventually becoming an ally until she left for Metropolis. Not long after, Commissioner Gordon became his next partner, officially creating the bridge between Batman and the police force, and creating the foundation for their famous partnership. Next was Batgirl, who actually arrived before Robin, a twist that nobody saw coming, as Robin was usually Batman's first sidekick, but it also helped give this series its own identity. She brought in a different energy and a new perspective on crime fighting, and also proved that she was a capable partner, forcing Bruce to learn how to trust a teammate. And finally, in season 4, Robin joined the team, changing the dynamic again and completing the Bat family. Together, these allies changed Batman's lone wolf mentality and added heart to the series, showing Batman that he wasn't alone in keeping Gotham safe. And with the show having a new art style, a new tone, and a revamp of characters, all that was left was the storytelling. Now, at first, the show leaned on a more episodic format, with it being more villain of the week based, with fast-paced action and unique animation that made the episodes stand out. But as the series went on, the stories became more layered, adding in arcs that gave Gotham and its characters more weight. One of the biggest themes that the series explored was Bruce's double life, as it had Bruce Wayne struggling to balance the man in the mask, and he would usually let Batman consume everything, which constantly raised the question of whether he was saving Gotham or losing himself in the process. The show also wasn't afraid to get personal, with some of the villains given deeper stories than expected. Like I mentioned earlier, Clayface's origin was extremely tragic, but that's because Clayface was originally Ethan Bennett, Bruce Wayne's closest friend, who was tragically turned into Clayface because of the Joker. And Ethan's transformation into Clayface affected Batman a lot, as it was a reminder of the cost of Bruce's war on crime, showing how even the closest ones to him could be lost. Next was the Riddler. His origin revealed that he was a child prodigy that was never accepted by his father and later betrayed by the woman that he loved in college. Those experiences of rejection shaped him into the obsessive villain that we saw on the screen, as he was a man whose riddles weren't just games, but expressions of control and bitterness. Other arcs built on the same emotional weight. Joker's chaos tested Batman's ability to maintain control when Gotham almost spiraled into madness. The crossover with Superman and later the Justice League expanded the scope and proved that the young Batman, who was originally unsure of himself, now belonged with the world's greatest heroes.
Even with our powers, we couldn't have done this without you.
Well, some of us need powers and some of us don't.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Now that the show has been done for a while, when thinking about what made this show different, I think that it was the fact that this show took risks. It reimagined characters in bold new ways and gave us a version of Bruce Wayne that we could grow with. Those choices helped set it apart from shows that came before, and in doing so, gave it its own voice. More than anything, the Batman proved that new ideas have value. I'll admit that when I first saw the Batman, I wasn't too excited to see it, mainly because my favorite version was from the DCAU. But as I gave the show a chance, I really enjoyed watching it, and this show became one of my favorites. I can truly say that this show was ahead of its time. But how do you feel about this show? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Or were you somewhere in between? Let me know in the comment section down below. But if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And with that being said, I'm Shanadachi, and I'm out.
I'm sorry, I owe you an apology. I got on TV and said you will not go 20 for 25 again. You messed around and went 14 for 18, 3 of the 4. So, sir, I apologize. Love the way you're playing. And again, now we have a series.